Hey there, YouTube. This will be a bit of a different video because it's just something I wrote. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Maybe it's a love letter. No, love letter would be weird, although it's important to love yourself. It's a bit of a letter to my 22-year-old self or something. I spend a lot of time working. Sometimes I take breaks and look on a website formerly called Twitter. I follow a lot of filmmakers on there. It tends to show me filmmakers I don't follow for some reason. So you start to pick up whatever the discourse du jour is, what everyone's outraged about at the moment. Is it something Scorsese said about Marvel movies? Or is it something about like young people not liking love scenes in films? Like, where do they think humans come from? It's just, all of this discourse just takes up so much space, and it's not important and it doesn't matter. You know, when the Sight and Sound Pulse came out, I remember people piling on someone who liked Citizen Kane. It's like, oh, that's such a cliched film to like. You should be liking Jeanne Dielman or Satan Tango or some other 7-hour-long film that doesn't even exist on any streaming service and was released on VHS once and you can't watch anyway. No matter what you like, you're never going to be accepted. You're never good enough for these clubs. And you know what? It doesn't matter. And I'm not here to talk about what's wrong, because everything is so wrong that any position you take is wrong. Citizen Kane and Jeanne Dielman and Stalker and all of these super slow, weird movies, they're all great. They're all something someone made. I'm here to say, for you personally, it's okay to like things. It's okay to like things for you. It's okay to enjoy things and be reflective within your own brain about whether or not you liked them and how you felt about them. You don't need to look around the room to see who's laughing or who's looking or who's nodding along. It's okay to like things. If you like Marvel movies, if you like Scorsese movies and superhero movies, that's fine. If you like slow, boring films like I do, that's okay too. And I hope my like for them doesn't threaten you, because your like of whatever doesn't threaten me. I don't care. Personally, I like movies that other people would call slow and boring. It's a movie I watched last year that I would say was my favorite film I watched last year was called Petite Maman. It was a really slow, quiet film. I cried like a baby and it affected me in a really deep, meaningful way. But I like movies that are small and subtle. I don't really love big action films with big action set pieces with singular strong men. It doesn't really do it for me. But maybe it does it for you. And I'm not about to yuck your yum. Speaking of strong men, I was raised super religious. I homeschooled. You know, the group always told you what you should and shouldn't like. But as I had a lot of time homeschooling, one unintended consequence of that was I had a lot of time to think and reflect and build tastes almost in a vacuum. It was super weird. I remember being deeply affected by an image in a film as a kid, like probably before I was 10. And it wasn't until I was in college when I rented the 400 Blows, which I have a poster of here. I watched it and the last scene hit me like a ton of bricks, because it was that image, it was that thing stuck in my head. It was a movie with not a lot of speaking in it, something you can just watch and experience. And I did it right as a kid and it affected me, and I didn't realize it until I was an adult, till I was in college. As I mature and care less, I don't feel guilty for not liking something that is widely celebrated. And I don't feel embarrassed for loving something that not a lot of people love. I get what being a boring dad is about. I also don't feel any guilt for loving the best comedy that's ever made objectively, and it's called Hot Rod. So if you like a Marvel movie, that's great. If you like a Wes Anderson movie, that's great. If you like a Marvel movie and a Wes Anderson movie, that's great. Rushmore, Wes Anderson's second film, blew my mind. I rented it on VHS. I rented it on a week rental from Blockbuster on VHS, and I watched it every day of that week on a farm. The first time I really understood a tone in film. It just changed how I thought about film. But there's other Wes Anderson films I could take or leave. They didn't move me. But I also don't feel compelled to broadcast my dislike. I just kind of move on. A big chunk of my youth was spent dwelling in fear and in hate. It's not really a fulfilling place to live. We need to celebrate the things that we think are great, but please don't waste time tearing down things other people have created. The movie Everything Everywhere All at Once blew me away, the effort put behind it. I've been a fan of the Daniels for a while. Their short film, Interesting Ball, if you haven't seen it, is just incredible. But because a lot of people loved Everything Everywhere All at Once, the people who didn't felt compelled to validate themselves with broadcasting their hate for it. It might seem cool to hate something that everyone else loves when you're 20. I'm guilty of that. But in reality, it wasn't cool then, and it's not cool now. But I do understand how wildly complicated it is to make something, how much craft and artistry goes into letting even the worst thing just exist. So as I've become more and more deep in this filmmaking world, I realize how hard it is to make this stuff. I don't wish that discouragement on anyone. I'm reminded how little I know every time I try to make something. So, should we watch everything through clenched teeth and pretend we liked it? No. Well, there's a ton of stuff I won't watch because I prejudge whether it's a good use of my time or not. But when you start consuming films with an open mind, begging for your opinions and the way you think to be changed, life gets so much better. When you're excited to hear about why someone loved something that you didn't love, when you genuinely can feel good for someone for loving something and enjoying it rather than feeling the compulsion to tear them down to make yourself feel better or something, life gets a lot better. So I leave you with one really big question. Are you defining yourself by the things you don't like? Because that's where teen boys hide, behind what sucks. And that's really boring. It's really boring. Do you know what is cool? What finally I've realized is cool is telling me about something that you loved. Putting a stake in the ground and professing your love for something without irony. It's okay to like things. It's okay to like things.